Look how sad this drone looks. And that's, by the way, the gimbal with the camera, it's just ripped off.
With the drones flying in the air, it does add like a kind of an uneasiness, because
it could definitely cut your rope.
It feels real close, and you know it can cut your rope. But
or just chop you, just like blood everywhere.
But here's yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a great tool.
Yeah, great tool. Carson was really psyched to use it. Yeah.
He's a little closer. I'm all, no.
Yeah. Back it up.
Further away, long shot, landscape.
Here's
no close-ups.
Yeah, and here's a little video that Keith cut while we were there about the terrible drone crash.
Holy there he goes, man. Oh, man. Just wonder if someone have seen where exactly the copter impacted.
100 meters, I think.
Oh, I found the copter. I found the copter.
Okay, good. That's awesome.
But it doesn't look awesome.
The crazy thing about that is that Brad fixed it. It's
Where's
like
Brad?
Brad's
I
Brad.
think he needs an applause for that.
Yeah. Applause for Brad.
Where is he?
It was like a pot of coffee later, and just like 24 hours of nonstop soldering, and he somehow fixed the. It was incredible that he fixed that thing, and we got it up in the air again.
Yeah.
Which was a miracle.
It was a miracle.
VOA, exploring the world around us.
Quite a bit of that movement, as President Ghani talked about. Similar in terms of the data, if you look at half of the world internet service is from Europe to Asia, especially East Asia, and because of the route that it has currently through the oceans, it takes about a data packet about 130 milliseconds to go from Europe to Asia. While if it is terrestrial lines, will cut that one by about 30 to 40 milliseconds, and every millisecond is worth about $100 million. So, so these were some of the kind of key elements that we were really looking at. Some of the key elements that we started back in 2014-15 was changing the rules in some of the laws of the country. For the first time, we had private sector could invest in electrical generation, transmission, and distribution system. Similarly, on the data, we broke the government's monopoly as the only entity that could bring all of the fiber optics and installations and owning of it, that now any company, if it's foreign or domestic, that can do. And also the idea was, what are the ways that we can bring private sector investment to the country? Because no country has moved from poverty to prosperity through grant and aid. In fact, if you look at it, for every $15 to $20 of grant and aid, that has a similar impact as $1 of private sector investment. So that's why this, our whole shift was how we can really move towards private sector investment. So along that line, the next key element was how we can really begin to look at the human capital or the human capacity that is needed to be able to move in these directions. Although since 2002, the number of universities and the number of schools has really changed tremendously. I mean, back in 2001, During the Taliban period, we only had about 700 students going to school, and all men. But today, that number has increased to over 7 million, both boys and girls. And the number of universities has moved from 2 to 3 to over 29 public universities and about 130 private universities. But unfortunately, in the area of quality, not a lot had really changed. I mean, the quality of universities had really remained quite low. So what we needed to do on the human capital side was finding ways that to see how we can really connect the needs of the country to the capabilities and the programs that we have in the university. So the first element was looking at the curriculum from the K through 12, and also looking at vocational technical. That's a very big need of the country, and then moving to the higher education side. One thing that we did for the curriculum, we went back to the 21st century key survival skills on how we can make sure that the students know how to read and write, how they can think critically, how they understand their civic responsibility and have a global perspective, have the basic elements of ethics, and also look at technological fluency, because we saw those ones as the key elements, and that's how we really began changing the curriculum for the K through 12. Also for vocational technical, we realized that that's going to be the major key element in moving the society forward. We created that to be a separate separate authority by itself. Now we have created one vocational, we use the Germanic vocational technical model to be a far more successful one than the Anglo-Saxon model. And we've been working with the German specifically with the GIZ. We have now created one vocational technical school in every province. In 2 years, there are 34 provinces. In 2 years, we'll have one in every district. There are about 340 districts. And in about 5 years, our plan is to convert 70% of our K-12 high school, general education high school to vocational technical, because most, even in many societies, not more than 30% of the students end up going into a 4-year college education. With college education, we have been working on changing the curriculum and also trying to bring new modes of teaching, specifically bring more blended education. We've been working with Afghanistan is one of the few countries that have been working with MIT edX to be able to be part of their open edX as well as full edX. In fact, later this week, I'm going to be speaking in Boston and at the MIT conference along this line. And again, the idea is not to have online education as a replacement of face-to-face, but in a blended model, specifically, I think, for the third world countries where the number of faculty are relatively short. If you have some good faculty, if their material is put online all across the country, the faculty in the local universities can use that one as a basis, and we can move from passive lectures to a more active learning environment for the students. And that basically has been the area on the higher education side. I'm glad to say that on the vocational technical, this year we had over 63% of our vocational technical applications were women. So this is something, and we see this to be a very critical and very effective way of really getting women into, in terms of their empowerment, in terms of education, in terms of really becoming more part of the productive economy. On the regional transformation, that has been one of the other roles that I play in, specifically working with Central Asian countries. We were able to develop very comprehensive set of agreements with Central Asian countries, specifically with Uzbekistan, with Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan, as well as the other two countries that do not have direct borders with us, from primarily in Kazakhstan and some with Kyrgyzstan. And as part of it, we have created a number of key transit routes through China, from Afghanistan to Kazakhstan, all the way to Russia, as well as through what we call a Lapis Lazuli corridor that takes through Turkmenistan, Caspian Sea, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey, and to Europe. And I think all of these ones with the railroad master plan that had been put together really creates new elements of connectivity between Afghanistan and the rest of the world, as well as connecting Central Asia to warm waters down to via Pakistan through Gwadar port, as well as via Iran to the Charbahar port. So I think these are some of the key elements and key aspects that we have done. I'll just mention a few of the other major procurement, some of the other major reforms that we have done. Procurement has been one of those areas that we've made it quite an open and a very far better system than, I could say, compared to the region as a whole. The process has become quite transparent, and also it has been noticed by a number of different entities overall. Also, in terms of budget, this year we had, I've been a Minister of Finance only for 3 months. We had the budget hearings. It took us 3 weeks. Every day from 8 to 5, I had with every department of the government come and talk about their budgets in a very open way. We had the civil society. We had other entities also there, so everybody can hear what they have and also what agreements we can reach. And my hope is that by the end of it, I just actually, yesterday before getting on a plane, I presented the budget to the Senate in Kabul, and hopefully in a couple of weeks, if we can get it through the Senate, then it will go through the Parliament, the lower house. And my hope is that the budget will be published on the network and everybody can see. And hopefully we can also put the next step would be to all of the expenses of the country. I think that in itself to me is something that the more the budget and expenses are seen by every citizen, that in itself, that light is the best disinfectant. I really believe in that. That would really be an element that will that will help on the reform and reduce and bring more transparency. So as part of what, one of the works that we're doing, I'll give you one example of this. This is basically, and as I refer to that one, to the document that President Ghani had put together back in 2014 as part of his the decade of transformation and what we need to do. We went to that document and pulled 200 statements on things he wanted to be done. And as part of that, we found that of the 200 statements, 78 of them has been accomplished. 90 of them we have partially accomplished. 22 are in planning in process. 2 has not been accomplished. And 8 elements we could not find some information. So basically, out of that 200 statements are over, we have seen 39% fully accomplished, 45% partially, and the other 20% in progress, and about 1% not achieved. So, are there challenges in Afghanistan? Absolutely, there are tremendous challenges. But I think compared to where the country was, where it has been, in terms of, as I mentioned in 2014, the